The teachings of Teclis the Illuminator had served the Idoneth well in their flight away from his light. The first reborn elves fled to the darkest reaches of the oceans across the mortal realms. They were faced with great hardship. The beasts that dwelled where light had abandoned were savage, but the magics learned from the mage god had aided in the Idoneth's adaptation to their new underwater civilization. They had chosen here to hide away from the prying eyes of their creator god, who looked to diagnose and eradicate them. And as insurmountable a burden it is to hide yourself from a god, the troubles of the Idoneth did not end here. The darkness hiding within the souls of the Deepkin began to manifest itself, and solving these maladies would require them to do so without answers from a god. Their souls had been wounded from the millennia-long torments within Slaaneish's stomach. Elves experience emotions more deeply than any other mortal race. For some Idoneth, those experiencing it can be driven to a frantic degeneracy known as the Malachi, from which there is no cure. They are engulfed in a fury and their mind is filled with debased plots. Entire enclaves have fallen to the spreading of this ailment. To prevent this, the Idoneth have forced themselves into a sensory deprivation underneath the oceans. Similar to El in Stranger Things, they allow the waters around them to calm them down. I guess it's kind of like a stress blanket. I don't know. I haven't really read anything where the Idoneth seem cold and logical, like a Vulcan. Matter of fact, a lot of the enclaves are emotionally driven. However, the Malachi curse is nothing compared to what they discovered in their offspring. The original Idoneth, molded from souls by Teclis, the Sethai, noticed that a huge portion of their offspring were dying mere moments after birth. I think it's like 95% of all Idoneth born die moments after birth. They had discovered that the souls of their offspring were rapidly withering. To save their majority population, the Idoneth turned to siphoning souls from plants and animals. The animus of these souls were paltry, and those born with withering souls, now known as the Namardi, would die in childhood. The full-souled Idoneth realized that there was no succor quite like the souls of a mortal to sustain their population. Even then, most Namardi, again, like 95% of their population, could only live for 40-ish years after having a mortal soul blessing them in their infancy. This soul curse would eventually doom the Idoneth, Teclis' wrath or not, and just as they escaped the light of the Illuminator god, the Idoneth would have to find a way to survive this as well. They would reshape their entire society and need to find ways to remain in their isolation while procuring souls from mortals. This would begin the next big chapter in the Idoneth Deepkin's harrowing journey for survival.